Amidst the hustle and bustle of New York City in 1991, beneath the cacophony of blaring car horns and the constant murmur of a million intertwined lives, a chilling story was about to unfold. It would revolve around Raquel Montano, an ordinary woman living in a city that never sleeps, whose life was about to be shattered by unimaginable horror. Oblivious to the impending danger lurking in the shadows, she sat in her apartment as the city lights flickered against her window, casting a haunting glow on her face. Little did she know that she was about to become the victim of a sinister plot, one that would rival the most gruesome tales heard on late-night news. This was not some rehearsed play or cheesy horror film. This was a reality in its raw and chilling form. And it all started on a mundane evening, just like any other, until everything changed. Welcome to No Tears for Black Girls, a true crime series created, written, and produced by award-winning writer John Reedberg and hosted by Samantha Paul. Raquel Montano was born in Brooklyn, New York on June 13, 1971. She lived with her parents on St. Mark's Avenue near Prospect Park. Her father, a Cherokee from South Carolina, met her Indian mother from Trinidad and Tobago, creating a blended family rich in culture and tradition. Growing up, Raquel had 4 older siblings who were all a mix of Indian and Spanish descent. However, they remained in Trinidad while she was born and raised in the bustling city of New York. It wasn't until her mother's journey to the States that they were able to reunite as a family. Despite the distance and age difference, Raquel cherished any time she could spend with her beloved siblings. When one of her sisters relocated to Louisiana, she and their mother joined them for a joyous holiday reunion. This was the first time all 5 siblings were together under one roof, and it was a momentous occasion filled with love and gratitude. Described as beautiful and full of life, Raquel, or Rocky to her family, had long black hair and a contagious smile. She relished simple pleasures like trips to Coney Island with her sister or sleepovers with cousins. Despite challenges and separation from loved ones, she maintained a vibrant spirit, finding happiness in small things like her favorite meal of pigs in a blanket. And through all the ups and downs, Raquel embodied this sentiment with grace and love towards her family. As she matured, Raquel blossomed into a charismatic young woman, known for her gentle heart and ambitious vision of herself as a model or singer. Her love for music was unmatched, but she also had an eagerness to pursue cosmetology. Focused and driven, it was clear that nothing could stand in the way of her dreams becoming reality. Raquel attended Lethbridge Junior High, located on Empire Boulevard and New York Avenue, now commonly known as MS 61. She quickly made friends and excelled academically. It was here that she first met Sean, who would become her devoted boyfriend. Despite their youth, they were inseparable from the start. What began as innocent affection between 2 teenagers soon grew into something more profound. They fell head over heels in love. Even when they went to different high schools, their bond remained unbreakable. Before long, Raquel and Sean found themselves expecting a child together. At such a young age, this news initially terrified them both, but they believed that their strong love could conquer any challenge that came their way. Raquel moved in with Sean and his parents on Rogers Avenue, and 3 months later welcomed a healthy son into the world. They named him Sean Jr., eagerly planning for their future as a family. Sean Sr. was determined to provide for his loved ones and considered applying for a job with the Transit Authority. The couple planned to get married after graduating high school in June of that year. They were certain that nothing could ever tear them apart. But on March 6th of 1991, a cold-blooded plot shattered those dreams forever. Raquel had plans to visit a family member in Brooklyn, taking baby Sean Jr. with her at just 2.5 months old. Sean Sr. watched as they got into a taxi on Rogers Avenue, never imagining it would be the last time he saw his beloved partner and child. As the hours passed with no sign of Raquel or their son, Sean Sr. grew increasingly anxious. It was unlike her to not communicate with her family or miss a planned visit. He even went to the home she was supposed to be visiting, but they hadn't seen her either. With no explanation or leads, Sean Sr. was left devastated and desperate to find his missing family. He arrived at the apartment, rapping insistently on the door until his knuckles turned red. No one answered. The realization slowly crept over them that something was terribly wrong. A frantic search began for mother and son, but they seemed to have vanished into thin air. The family was consumed by a sense of foreboding and anguish. Days dragged on with no sign of Raquel until a startling discovery was made. Firefighters stumbled upon a burning body behind an abandoned gas station, later identified as that of Raquel, in a horrific state. As if being burned alive wasn't enough, she had also been brutally beaten and suffocated. For 2 weeks, her loved ones held out hope that she would be found safe and sound. The shock and devastation when her death was confirmed is indescribable. And then came the question, where was baby Sean? Despite tireless efforts from the authorities, there were no leads and no sign of the missing infant. Desperate and grasping at straws, they considered the possibility of him being sold on the black market like other stolen babies before him. The uncertainty and fear continued to plague them as they searched for answers. The tragic fate of Raquel weighed heavily on the hearts of Sean Sr. and his family, who refused to believe that little Sean Jr. was also gone. The streets of Brooklyn were soon flooded with missing posters and flyers, each containing details about the baby's last known outfit, a bold red and white pinstripe baseball ensemble featuring Mickey Mouse designs and a matching cap. For 2 weeks, authorities scoured every corner in search of the missing child, uncertain of what horrors they might uncover in their pursuit of justice. But despite the grim circumstances, Sean Sr. held on to hope, convinced that his son was still out there somewhere. Even if Raquel was truly gone as the pathologist had claimed, he couldn't accept the loss of his son. And then, on March 18, 1991, everything changed. A tip led detectives to a home in South Ozone Park, Queens, where they discovered that Pamela Andrews, a distant relative of Raquel's, had been the one responsible for the heinous crime. It was revealed that Andrews had lured Raquel to her apartment under false pretenses before savagely attacking her and suffocating her to death with a pillow. Her 13-year-old daughter, Shakota, assisted in the murder by holding Raquel down while her mother took her lifeless body and disposed of it behind a vacant gas station after setting it on fire. All along, stealing Raquel's child had been Andrews' twisted plan, an act of pure evil committed by someone who knew Raquel since she was just a young girl. The depth of this betrayal and tragedy would haunt all those involved for years to come. As soon as Sean Sr. knocked on the apartment door, her fate had already been decided. The authorities quickly connected the dots after acting on a tip, and both perpetrators were taken into custody. After intense questioning, the sickening truth was finally revealed, and the motive behind it all was truly despicable. It was discovered that Andrews had recently suffered a miscarriage on February 17, 1991. Instead of seeking medical attention or confiding in her boyfriend, she carried out her twisted plan. Since Raquel had just given birth, Andrews saw an opportunity to steal baby Sean and pass him off as her own. She even went as far as changing his name to Kenny, pretending he was hers. When she felt like the police were on her, she took Sean out of her home and took him to South Ozone Park, where she convinced her boyfriend's family that the child was theirs. Meanwhile, 2 young foster children and another daughter of Andrews were removed from the apartment and placed into care. Baby Sean was examined at Wyckoff Hospital and found to be unharmed. But it was clear that Andrews never intended to give him up. He had new clothes, bottles, and a diaper bag. The horrific truth about what happened to Raquel was devastating for her family. Though they had a gut feeling that Sean Jr. might still be alive, they couldn't escape the tragedy that had occurred. The scene was filled with conflicting emotions. On the one hand, there was immense joy and relief at Sean's safe return and the reunion between him and his family. But on the other hand, Raquel's suffering seemed senseless. She had only ever loved her child and trusted someone she thought had good intentions. Andrew Andrews was not a close figure in their lives, but the tragedy that struck them was unimaginable. Sean Sr.'s suspicions were confirmed as he grappled with the devastating loss on that fateful Tuesday morning in March of 1991. As baby Sean was returned to his father and Raquel's family, they showered him with love and affection. Despite their relief, there was still a heavy presence of grief over Raquel's absence. Sean Sr. even prayed it wasn't her who had met such a horrific fate. Their dreams of a happy future together were shattered. They had envisioned a big house where Junior would grow up and someday bring grandchildren to play. But now, that dream was dead. Raquel was the only woman Sean Sr. had ever loved. Her murderers, Pamela and Shakota Andrews, were eventually charged with kidnapping and second-degree murder. It wasn't a surprise to those who knew Shakota at Junior High School 324, where she caused trouble and ran with a bad crowd. Even though they both pled guilty for their role in Raquel's death, Shakota received a sentence of only 3 to 10 years due to being a juvenile at the time of the crime. Meanwhile, her mother was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison, but was later released on parole. The aftermath of this tragedy weighed heavily on Raquel's family, especially her only child who had lost both parents in one tragic moment. Despite their efforts to stay together and form a tight bond, it was all taken away from them without warning or reason. Sean Sr. was never able to move on from his beloved Raquel's brutal and violent end. The relationship between him and his son was irreparably damaged, a tragic result of the unspeakable acts that took place. The weight of grief and trauma hung heavily on them both, affecting every aspect of their lives. Sean Jr., only learning the truth at 21 years old, was left with a shattered heart and no chance of closure. Meanwhile, those responsible roamed free, their crimes brushed aside as if they never happened. But amidst the tragedy, there were glimmers of hope. Sean Jr. grew into a remarkable young man, kind, loving, and fiercely devoted to his family in the wake of such loss. He bore a striking resemblance to his late mother and carried her spirit within him. Despite their grief, the family remained close, leaning on one another for support. And while Pamela Andrews may have been seen as a kind and loving neighbor by those around her, the truth was far more sinister. Her actions were driven by selfishness, hatred, and an insatiable thirst for blood. Raquel's love for her child and family stood in stark contrast to Andrews's true nature. Even though Raquel has passed away, those who cared for her will always cherish her memory. May she find eternal peace and never be lost in our hearts. Thank you for tuning in to No Tears for Black Girls. This series is skillfully crafted by acclaimed writer and producer John Reedberg with the guidance of unapologetic host Samantha Paul. Catch new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday on all major podcast platforms. You can listen anywhere, anytime. And if you truly enjoy our content, please leave a 5-star rating and positive review. Remember to stay loved, stay blessed, and stay safe.